Can America survive a full-scale invasion? In 250 years, no army has ever conquered the United States. Not one. The British tried but failed. Japan bombed Hawaii and lost an empire. Every superpower since has looked at the map and realized the same thing. Invading America isn't war. It's suicide. But here's the question nobody ever asks. What if it actually happened? What if everything collapsed and America had to survive on its own? Could the US withstand a full-scale invasion? Not on screens, but in reality? And what would that war actually look like? It almost never happens. In 1814, the British invaded and burned Washington, D.C. The White House, the Capitol, even the president fled. That remains the only time in history that a foreign army captured the U.S. Capitol. In 1916, Pancho Villa's men raided New Mexico, killed Americans, and vanished back across the border. In 1942, Japan occupied two small frozen islands in Alaska. When the U.S. retook them, the brutal terrain killed nearly as many men as the enemy did. And that's it. No one has ever conquered the mainland United States, because America is a nightmare to invade. Look at the map. Two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. They're not just bodies of water, they're walls. The Pacific alone stretches nearly 5,000 miles, a moving barrier of storms, currents, and vast emptiness. Even superpowers choke on that distance. That's why Hitler never tried. That's why Japan only struck Hawaii. It's too far, too hard, too costly. During World War II, when the US attempted the reverse on invading across the Pacific, it took 3 years, tens of thousands of ships, and entire floating cities of fuel and logistics. That's how difficult a transoceanic invasion truly is. Even modern militaries understand the math. A single carrier strike group burns millions of gallons of fuel per week. Crossing 5,000 miles means weeks of exposure to satellites and submarines. But suppose someone somehow made it. Beyond those oceans lies a land built like a fortress, not by generals, but by geology. Imagine an enemy fleet finally reaching the Pacific Northwest. They'd expect beaches, they'd find cliffs. The Olympic Peninsula rises almost straight out of the ocean. No flat ground, no easy landing zones. Storms slam the coast like artillery. Rain falls relentlessly. Some areas receive nearly 12 feet a year. That's not weather, that's warfare. The coastline itself fights back. Jagged rock, hidden coves, shifting sandbars. Sailors called it the graveyard of the Pacific. Over 2,000 ships have wrecked here, at nearly one for every 3 miles of shoreline. Even today, the Columbia River Bar is so dangerous that pilots need a special license to cross it, and ships are still lost. One wrong swell, one gust too strong, gone. Behind that chaos stands another barrier, the Coast Range. It isn't massive, but it's close enough to the sea to trap clouds and crush momentum. Even lighthouses built to endure centuries have been rebuilt farther inland as the ocean devours the shore. Before invaders ever see a city, they'd be fighting rain, mud, and gravity. And beyond that lies a land that punishes armies long after the storm passes. Suppose they somehow land. Now comes the real enemy, the continent itself. Deserts, mountains, swamps, snow, every mile different, every region hostile. Afghanistan exhausted superpowers with a few 100,000 rifles. The United States would represent resistance on a vastly larger scale, but reaching that stage is nearly impossible because the sky sees everything. An invasion requires secrecy. Secrecy died decades ago. Satellites track ships, aircraft, and thermal signatures. Drones loiter for days. Radar blankets both oceans. In 1991, U.S. satellites detected tanks concealed under sand. Today, imaging systems can identify objects with extraordinary precision from orbit. A fleet crossing the Pacific would leave a detectable trail weeks before arrival, and once identified, it would face carrier strike groups, submarines, and long-range bombers long before reaching Hawaii. You cannot conceal an invasion on a planet saturated with sensors, so instead of attempting to land forces directly, adversaries would likely seek to weaken America from within before ever approaching its shores. The first battlefield would be digital, cyber attacks targeting the power grid, financial systems, GPS networks, air traffic control, disable the infrastructure, create panic, fracture coordination. Because if anyone ever hopes to invade physically, they would first try to make America collapse virtually. One EMP blast might in cars stall, planes lose guidance, power grids collapse. In an instant, 21st century America reverts to the 19th. Then comes disinformation, fake news, manufactured outrage, artificial enemies, turn neighbors into rivals, distract the nation while strategic pieces move quietly in the background.